like to call to order the Animal Regulation Subcommittee meeting of July 3rd, 2025 at 7 p.m. We're going to take something out of order. I want to do the minutes first. Everybody has a chance to look at the minutes from April 24th, 2025. What's that, Linda?
Did we used to go around the table and say who's here, present, the minute taker in the past? Well, I know that we're, said so
Okay.
here, but did you ever say it out loud?
Okay, everybody's here. Elizabeth Frenno and Chris has an excused absence.
Linda Brown?
We don't have to do a roll call. Those two have an
okay.
excused
All
absence.
right.
We know what the rest of them are. So
Okay.
if you can review the minutes.
Well, I know we know, but I'm just
Okay.
saying for the minute. I have one correction. Number 2, it's, in the middle of that paragraph, after the quotes for 705, motion from Mike Fitzpatrick to me, chairperson, should be to be, B-E.
I think there's a word missing in a sentence.
Which one?
The last sentence in number 3. The committee took the public's opinions on what the guidelines for the regulations. Maybe it should say for the regulations should be, something like that.
On, the committee took the public's opinions on the guidelines for the regulation.
There you go. Strike what?
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to approve the April 24th, 2025 meeting minutes as amended.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other further discussions? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Prior to the meeting, Jessica handed out 2 different documents. One of them being a draft for the animal regulations, the second one being a right to farm bylaw. This you'll have to table until the next meeting. It's not on your agenda.
Okay.
So
This is the same one that was handed out before, right? Exactly.
Correct, except it was the Paxton town bylaw. I just changed Paxton to Douglas. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. The one that Chris had provided last time.
It still says Paxton.
Oh, I must have missed one.
It's
Sorry
in
about that.
First paragraph, we the citizens of Paxton.
Sorry.
Excuse me, stop for a minute.
Sorry.
Are we talking about this?
Yeah.
Are we talking, excuse me, is
Well,
this what you're referring to?
It has been on the agenda, not on the agenda.
We're
but
going
handed
to-
out before, so.
It's been handed out,
Yeah.
but we're not going to discuss and go into detail what that is until it's on the agenda. Okay? So look that over. If you want it on the next agenda, it can be put on the next agenda. Is that what everybody wants?
Sure.
Sure.
For the purpose of discussion, anything that you're going to discuss needs to be on the agenda. You can't just just decide what you want to add at the moment. It's a
Okay.
violation of open meeting law.
Okay, thank you for the info.
You want to talk about this? Since
Sure.
you drafted it?
The Town of Douglas Animal Regulations Working Draft for 7/3, today's date. I went through and just made the edits as discussed last time. There were some things we had struck through and additions. As before, anything that we wanted omitted on this draft are struck through, and anything that has been added since the last draft is bold and italicized. Do you want me to go through one by one with the edits, or how would you like?
Well, you explain what the edits are. If I don't know if we need to go through them one by one. Is there only a few of them? Or
Yeah, there's just a couple. This was pretty solid.
Yeah, do that.
All right, so number 1, purpose and authority. Letter B, there had been a question about which Mass general laws to reference. I think Linda had brought that up a couple of times, so I did double check. I just added in parentheses, since this is more for a discussion or a description than to actually be added to this, that Chapter 111, Section 123A is about farms and nuisances. And Chapter 128 has many sections discussing various aspects of farming, so I think we could just refer to Chapter 128 without noting the sections. I'm not sure if we want to keep Chapter 111, Section 125A, since it's about farms and nuisances, just for the ones to refer to.
I think that section, this part of it, B, legal basis, at least captures that it's something you want addressed by the Board of Health when they look at this, whether it's the right section, wrong section, or whatever. I think that'll be up to their part of their review, but they should have something in there for a legal basis.
Okay, so I'll strike the parentheses. We'll keep those
So what are you
sections as
striking?
is.
But I would,
just-
yeah, you could, but we could just leave that.
Just leave it?
Yeah,
Okay.
just leave it in there to, it makes them look at it.
For a note for them?
For
Okay.
nothing else.
Sure.
It has them look at it to see if it's relevant. I'm sure they'll speak to town council to see if it's
As long as
identified as the
it
correct
only
section.
affects
whatever.
people that have farms.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Great. Moving on to Section 3 about the animal inspector, I kind of reworded what had been there before, just to say, refer to requirement and duties for animal inspector, Town of Douglas, as posted on the town website. We were provided with that document at the last meeting, and Mike, you had suggested that they could post that to the website, so I added that wording. Moving on to the next page, number 5, letter A, about the 6 LUs under a quarter acre pertaining to chickens. We wanted to strike the part about 6 chickens being the minimum.
Referenced by
traffic.
effective.
Yeah, right. So we wanted to strike that, so that has been struck since last time. Still under considerations, the little c, lowercase c, the low density areas versus high, still to be discussed, so I left that in bold. I added D to consider distance from neighboring dwellings. Just a question for us internally, do we want it to be a suggestion or a rule with wording such as in quotes, barns, stables, coops must maintain a distance of X number of feet from a neighboring dwelling. This would take care of the density issue automatically. That was kind of, D is kind of my suggestion, C is Mike's suggestion about the low versus high. So those points are in bold, just to be discussed. We can come back to the discussion of that if you want to. We just move forward with the edits. Under number 6, public safety, letter B. I believe it still sort of remained a question about enclosures and fencing versus free ranging. So the question remains, could we discuss whether free ranging should be restricted or allowed under certain conditions? Or do we just want to keep the wording, owners must make a reasonable effort to confine livestock, and then if there are complaints, we'll just let that sort itself out?
As the ridiculous example that I said when it came up, I think it should be defined as to what your intention of free ranging, because of how it decides free range is cows. I don't think that would be well accepted. Right? So,
Yeah.
it just, if you're thinking about free ranging, my gut feeling is you're talking more about birds, right? Not horses or cows or pigs or sheep or,
Most likely.
or whatever. So you may want to change that from livestock to birds or whatever it is that you're thinking. Just be a little more
Okay.
definitive. Livestock in general, that could be a nightmare for everybody.
Okay,
I know somebody on Northwest Main Street that free ranges all those horses are going to be a problem.
right. So if we want to keep the wording, owners must make a reasonable effort to confine livestock, and then add a line about, or an exclusion, poultry may be excluded from this, and free ranging allowed, something like that wording? Or I can think about how to word that a little.
I think people would accept free-ranging chickens.
That people wouldn't?
Others, neighbors would accept other people's
Right.
ranging chickens.
Some do and some don't. So
Yeah.
And that could depend too on how close your neighbors are.
Yeah.
If you abut, open space, might not be a problem, but I know folks were a little concerned about that, about wanting
Chickens
to.
going out in the road, I've had to dodge some.
Right,
here.
and they could get
And
run
it would-
over.
Well, could cause me to go off the road,
That's true too, right.
get another car.
But Howard, what's your B? I'm having trouble identifying how that should be worded. Owners should make a reasonable effort. That's up to interpretation. There's got to be a different way to define that. Because everybody, I would assume, makes a reasonable effort. I make a reasonable effort to keep my horses in the yard. As long as there's grass, they're not going to go anywhere anyways. But
Maintain, owners must maintain appropriate fencing?
well, things happen. A tree falls on a fence,
Right.
as Howard brought up,
Right.
and that's beyond the owner's control.
Right.
But by having a definition of saying a reasonable effort, that's up to interpretation. So just something to think about. So
Different people
If
use
that-
different methods, and
right,
some of them amaze me because they don't work on my cows,
right.
but that's just how they are.
It's just something I want to think about with that particular definition to see if it's the right wording. If it, at the end of the day, it stays to be that, then it stays to be that.
Right,
But it's
right.
something that I think we should think about. It's something to look closer at. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, it's fine.
So,
Yeah, because free ranging, I think that some citizens, the folks, feel that that's a right they would like to have, to be able to free range.
I don't see why they shouldn't be able to let their chickens in their yard.
Yeah, maybe to add wording, free ranging poultry is allowed so long as they do not.
In the yard, but then it becomes an issue when they go outside
Well,
the yard.
Right.
So it's,
Right.
That's where the issue is.
In the Freetown mass that I handed out
Last
last meeting
time.
and previous meetings, letter C says no owner or person having care of sheep, swine, horses, oxen, cows, dog, cows or other grazing animals or fowl, shall permit or suffer any such animal or animals to trespass on the premises of another person without the permission of said person.
We could add that into that section.
And that's,
It's something to look at.
Okay.
that's letter C.
You don't like,
You don't like it?
Well, you got to have
Well, yeah,
permission,
but it
or
could
they
be-
can just
so
say, well,
What I'm getting
no.
at, how it, look at it, right?
Just
So
look
it could be
at
a
it.
combination of,
Yeah.
of the different things.
But then in previous sections, it just does say you shall make every reasonable attempt
Yeah.
to keep your animal contained.
Right.
Right, so you can't be punished when you take it out.
Yeah, you're
that
not-
neighbor's
that-
yard,
yeah,
Because
this-
that's where the fence is.
This whole Freetown is not about punishment. It's pretty much animal containment, or the lack they have thereof in Freetown.
Right,
Okay,
but there's people who have large parcels and their birds run around there.
right, exactly.
Because Freetown is pretty big, with the same population as us, so.
I can try to make an amalgam of that, the Freetown wording, and try to
It has
work
quite a
it a
few
little
things
bit.
about making effort to contain your animals,
Right.
your property.
Okay, good to move
See.
on from there?
Yeah.
Okay. Section 7, manure and waste management. Under B, disposal. There was a question that remained from last time we were discussing, do we want
You just-
to, sorry?
This is
Did I
in
skip?
bold. Was that in bold before?
Oh, the headings are all in bold.
Okay,
They're,
all right.
the additions
Yep.
are bold and italic. So there was a question, do we want the wording about manure or removal at regular intervals? As it reads, composting in accordance with mass regs, and it cites them. And then, or removal at regular intervals, because that's another thing, the word regular, how do you define what's regular, how long?
Regular could be every 10 years, just the farmer.
Right, so do we even want that wording, or just to say composting in accordance with the mass solid waste laws that it cites here?
I don't even know if we need that whole section. Because if the one prior to it is about odor, noise, and pest management, to minimize offensive noises, odor, and pests, that kind of covers it. So what would you think, a timeline in which you have to get rid of your manure?
I don't know.
And this is about
I have a
composting.
pile in my backyard
Right,
that's over 20 years old. It's actually really good material.
That's the
that's
compost, yeah.
true, right.
It doesn't bother anybody. That was the manure pile that
Right.
I put it into another spot and let it just sit there.
I had a compost pile for years, but it's all gone now because I have flower gardens.
But
Oh, where?
getting back to the manure and stuff, horse manure doesn't smell until you move it.
Well, this is composting, which is different than just
Right.
piling it, you know? This is about compost. It's totally different than just piles of
Yeah,
manure.
I'm realizing that maybe instead of the title of section B, instead of disposal, it should be composting, because it doesn't actually talk about disposal. Or we could say composting and disposal, but then again, how do we address the disposal?
Composting and
And,
just solid manure sitting
Yeah,
there
because
is
some things you
different.
can't compost.
yeah,
Too
right.
close to their neighbors, and that would cause a problem.
Right, because I did want to just talk about it, to include it, Mike, to your point about striking it, since it's included in noise, odor, and pest management, because I believe the original draft from the Board of Health had something about a manure management plan, feed management plan, so that's why I called it out in its own section to just kind of go into finer detail. But it's, open to
It
suggestions.
just appears to be a little redundant because it's called out up above, right? And then under section 7A, storage, right? Away from wetland water sources and all that. And C, runoff prevention, right? And also, so you actually captured all three of those. The disposal, I don't necessarily agree with that. So now, it comes into play that if I'm on a 20,000 square foot lot and I have a huge manure pile and my neighbors don't like it, well, it falls under section 6 under noise or pest management, right? So,
And to me,
but if I'm where I'm at now and nobody's affected by it, why do I have to get rid of that pile if I'm choosing to keep it?
True.
Because different people want it.
and disposal, composting should not be under disposal.
It's different.
You're not
Right.
disposing.
That's true.
You have no plans on this. So your compost can't, keeping it on your
Right.
property, because you're going to use it on your property.
Do we want to just strike B? Keep A storage and C runoff, just to reference? Or,
Actually, I like the original suggestion to change that from disposal to compost.
That sounds
Because
good.
if you choose to keep the manure and you're going to maintain a pile of compost, it directs you that there is some regulation, so that's already on the books that would identify that.
right,
It doesn't necessarily, as I read it again, it doesn't necessarily say you have to get rid of it. It just says that if you do get rid of it, in the raw state, I would imagine, it has to go to an actual compost facility. But if it's already broken down, everybody wants it for their garden and whatnot. After you get through those crazy roots, so I haven't figured out what they are yet. They grow in the piles, but
okay.
when you dig them up, there's these big giant roots that are in there. I don't know what they are, but something to do with it.
Okay, so I'll
Is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
change the heading to composting. I'll strike the wording about removing. And continuing on. There was in on number 9, special permit, the last sentence where we had talked about if you're denied, you may appeal to an independent hearing officer. There was still the question, who would this be? I don't know if we even have to say that or just strike that, like, just say independent hearing officer, and that's it. There was a question of who that would be.
Yeah, again, so we're not actually creating this.
Right.
This is a suggestion form, so now you're bringing attention to it, right? So there should be a hearing, we're thinking there should be an independent hearing officer, and who should that be? Okay, so this is something that they'll address. If we strike it out, they won't think about it, right?
Okay.
Because
So I'll leave
unless they're bored, I don't think they're following our meetings.
All right, so we'll leave that. Continuing on to number 11, complaints, hearings, concerns, and fines. There was an addition I added to the last sentence in paragraph A regarding concerns of animal cruelty or inhumane treatment. Contact the Douglas Police Department, and I gave their phone number, and then the MSPCA number immediately. Oh, I just noticed a typo. Strike the word "or" after the MSPCA phone number.
The Douglas Police Department is only for the animal control bylaw, which is dogs.
So they would not handle animal cruelty?
No.
Oh, I thought I read that somewhere that
Well,
you should contact.
that's where I'll differ with you on that, because if it's a criminal violation, they would handle that.
Yeah, I believe I read that somewhere.
Somewhere, we
I-
can find that. I
Okay.
would agree with you, but until then, I'd say, call the MSPCA. It's happened on
Right.
multiple occasions.
Again,
personally.
this is only a suggestion, so we're leaving the stuff in there so that when it goes to the next group of people, if they decide to strike it, they strike it. But we're making them at least look at it and think about it.
Right.
Why don't we ask the police
What the procedure is.
Because that's
if
not
they
our
would
job.
like to be involved?
Because that's not our job, to ask the police. But our responsibility is to try to come up with something to send to the Board of Health. And if they choose to keep it, strike it, or whatever, then they do.
And you gotta remember.
Not having it.
Well, we're striking a lot of stuff that they might want.
Okay.
It's my opinion.
Yep.
Got yours.
And yet, what's that?
You've got yours, I've got mine.
Yep.
We've all got our own.
Did you have something
Oh, I
to
was gonna
add?
say, if it's a layperson that's reporting cruelty, they're gonna call the police first.
Right,
Because they don't know who to call.
right. I
had
can't
called the
remember
Board
where
of Health.
I read it, but I
Yeah,
did
but
read
again,
it
it's
somewhere.
like if this was my mother, she'd probably just call the police.
Right, because it's a criminal charges could be brought against the person, so.
I think that,
Okay, I say we leave it, just like you said, Mike, the Board of Health can decide, take it out. There was an addition that was suggested at the last meeting, lowercase I, number 1. If the wording was added, if no resolution is reached, the matter may be escalated to a civil lawsuit initiated by the private parties. That was from a note from last time. And moving on, I think that may have been the last, that was the last edit. Number 12 still has some bold. I think we wanted to leave those again as a
Yep.
suggestion for the Board of Health about suggesting things to add to the website. And last page, Schedule A, about the livestock units. There was still a question remaining about how to address only one animal if it's a pack animal. That kind of wasn't decided. We could just leave it. And then the questions about any weight guidelines for animals not listed. That's it. So it's we're getting close to being pretty buttoned up on this.
They may have any suggestions for additions or changes to this? Linda?
I plead the fifth.
Okay, so is that a no?
That's a no.
Okay. Darlene?
just about that Schedule A1, the pack animals, there's a lot of single horse owners. So I think maybe just not address that.
I'm still not even sure about even including animal units since it's very arbitrary. The numbers just based on, there's no consistent numbers in the research, so. Still not sold on the idea in itself. I don't know how others feel about that.
Thoughts, Darlene? Thoughts? Anything to add or subtract? No? Howard?
No, I don't think so.
No. Jessica?
No other thoughts?
Do you have this in a document you can send to Kristen?
Yes, it's in a Google Doc.
So that way she can email it to the group, and then I want Chris and Elizabeth to look at it, and then we'll put it on the next agenda to review.
How do we add the other document to the agenda for next time? The bylaw? Do I email? Oh, already all set. Okay, great. Thanks.
I write whatever notes are on, and then whatever we're doing, I'll put them on our agendas so that, like this next meeting,
Right.
I put that on there so that Kristen knows.
Right. After last meeting, we had, when we read the Paxton one, and I suggested drafting up the Douglas Right to Farm bylaw, and then I attended the selectmen meeting where, last time where
Yeah, sorry, everybody wasted their time going because you
Oh,
Well, I don't
Should have
think
had
so.
the-
I watched it.
should have had an opportunity. What's that?
I watched it on TV because I wanted to make sure there was
No,
a quorum
but-
present.
But there should have been an opportunity for people to voice their concerns, in my opinion.
But I
And that
think
was
it
all
was
purpose
Yeah.
of
a
that.
good meeting and it got the word out.
it was good to hear the selectmen's opinions because they don't know anything about this, and they seem to say, let's do a right to farm bylaw in congruence with
I
regulations.
think they wanted to just see it as a bylaw.
Right, right. So, yeah, that's why, again, we already had the idea, so, and then based on that, I was like, yeah, let's definitely draft that up as well, and we can present both together to the Board of Health. do next week? The week after? 2 weeks?
That's fine.
17th?
Ten, 17,
17th?
Thursdays, I think you're good. Looks like there's no meetings here. Yeah.
Mike, do you intend to, the question about the density and or number of feet from neighboring dwellings to discuss next time when Chris and every member's here?
Yeah, we're going to review this
Leave that.
entire document again. I would leave everything in there.
Okay.
Again, I think when we're very close to, we've hashed out all these ideas, I think we're going in circles a little bit now. We get to the final document that I'd rather have things on there like that so they at least look at it. They can discard it if they want, but at least think about it, like just getting to the last page about calling the police versus the SBA. Again, as Linda pointed out, everybody has an opinion on that, but it makes them look at it, think about it. So if they choose to keep it, they keep it. If they choose to get rid of it, they get rid of it. With that, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, it's very, very close to being finished.
Yeah, I think so. Think about that free ranging.
Right.
You can't have it that wide open.
Right.
It just won't work.
Yeah, I'll work on rewording that for next time and including some of the other wording that
Yep.
was referenced.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Anybody else have anything? No. Look for a motion to adjourn. And we
Oh, when's our next meeting?
try to get out of it. You said in 2 weeks, what you want?
10? Oh, the
17th? Thursday the 17th?
Did we agree?
Does
on
anyone,
17th,
yet.
good?
is that good for everyone?
You good for 17th? You
Yeah.
good for the 17th? You good for the 17th? You good for the 17th?
Yep.
Yeah. So am I. So 7/17 at 7 PM?
It's a lot of sevens.
What's that?
A lot of sevens.
At the next meeting, when we go through this, I'll open it up because I think we'll be pretty close to being done. We'll open it up and get some input from people to see if there's things that they feel strongly about that should be added or subtracted from it. And go from there. We're all in it for the same reasons. I feel that because we all attend these different meetings, right? As far as tonight's meeting, there's been some chatter about it was a conspiracy because it was holidays and stuff like that. That couldn't be further from the truth. The Kristen and the Board of Health picked 3 different dates, sent it to everybody, and that's what they came back with. I was surprised Darlene actually wasn't available tonight, but then she showed up. Well, that's what Kristen told me. Because I called her and asked her. After I seen the remarks, I called up and I asked what the response was from everybody, and that's how this date came about. Like every other committee I'm on, I typically say, I don't care, man. I'll make myself available for as long as it's not on another night that I'm scheduled for a meeting. But anyways, there's a lot of frustration for everybody in this, whether it's people in the audience or sitting at the table. But I think that as a group, we're trying to do the best we can to come up with something that's reasonable. And everybody won't be happy. Nobody ever is. But we're doing the best we can to try to get to a point where we make something that makes sense. So, and like Linda pointed out earlier, that's up to opinions, so not everybody will agree with that statement I made, but that's okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:36.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody, for coming out.
Enjoy the weekend.
See everybody in 2 weeks.
Watch out for the